I will now touch on a very important factor that companies have to consider when approaching the Hispanic market. There are different areas in which the Hispanic population has grown in the last few years. From 2006 to 2011, the Hispanic adult population grew from just 12% to just over 15%, which has to be taken into consideration for marketing purposes. On this figure, you can see identify the top 10 designated market areas where the Hispanic adult population as a share of the total adult population grew the most since 2006. Markets from north to south, east to west are represented, reflecting the fact that Hispanic influence is growing across the country. In areas such as Greenville, it is important to recall the tremendous growth in Hispanic population since 2006. Today, 8.6% of the adult population is Hispanic, while in 2006 only 5.5% was Hispanic, which means that the Hispanic population as a percentage of the total population grew by a relative 58% in just a few years. Even in Florida markets, where the Hispanic population was already at or above the national average, we see Hispanic population growth much faster than that of non-Hispanics. In Salt Lake City, we see a growth of 24%, Idaho Falls 31%, Rockford 27%, Fort Smith 23%, Chicago 22%, Washington D.C. 45%, and like I mentioned, Greenville with the 58%, Orlando 21%, Fort Myers 31%, and Miami with the growth of 29%. Moving on to the next point is consumer expectations. Hispanic consumers are more optimistic about their financial future. On average, Hispanic consumers are more optimistic about their personal financial situation than that of the United States as a whole and the rest of the population. Even during the Great Recession, Hispanics remain more optimistic about the financial situation of the United States. This optimism could be related to the culture that represents the faith and beliefs of the Hispanic people. They usually think that things will get better as time goes by, which is a characteristic that can possibly have an effect on this chart. This motion of positive thinking should also be considered by marketers because these are the kind of things I keep encouraging companies to look at when advertising to Latinos. They could launch a campaign that touches on those factors, talking about a product that makes them feel good even in these difficult financial times for the country. They can definitely relate to that feeling. Hispanics will have a strong belief that they could be related to an ad like that, and that could be a successful marketing strategy that a company could take, for instance. And as we can see in the chart, the Hispanic consumer expectation is above the average level of the other adults in the United States. My next point is language preferences. When speaking about language preferences among Hispanic, we have to take a look at the group that they belong to, referring to their generation. In general, all Hispanic adults, as you can see, have similar preferences in the top part of this chart. They favor English and Spanish almost equally. However, we see a big shift down in the area where the first generation Hispanics are listed. First generation Hispanics are those born outside the United States. We can see that 37% of them prefer mostly Spanish, and 34% of them prefer only Spanish, which means that there are 1.7 times more likely to prefer to speak Spanish. This is because they were born in a different country and their first language is Spanish, which makes sense that they would feel more comfortable to speak it. Second generation Hispanics, which are those born in the United States, we can see that 36% of them prefer to speak mostly English and 50% of them prefer only English. This means that the second generation Hispanics are 1.2 times more likely to prefer to speak mostly English but some Spanish. Even though their parents speak Spanish most of the time, English remains the language they mostly communicate with their friends and how they learn at school. However, only 55% of third generation Hispanics, who are those born in the United States with United States born parents, say that they prefer to speak only English and a little bit of Spanish once in a while. There are 2.9 times more likely to prefer to speak only English. The next point is attitudes towards advertising. When it comes to advertising, we will see that a more dominant part of the Hispanic audience prefers to be addressed in Spanish. For instance, 52% of Spanish dominant Hispanics and 29% of English dominant Hispanics say, when I hear a company advertises in Spanish, it makes me feel like they respect my heritage and want my business. I would like to point out that this phrase is of great importance if you pay attention to what it's communicating. When Latinos feel that their culture is being embraced or that they're given importance, they react positively to whatever is making them feel that way. Therefore, if advertisements in Spanish make Latinos feel good about themselves, they are more loyal towards those companies. They believe it is important that they have websites in Spanish. And most importantly, they can remember more about and pay more attention to advertisements in Spanish. So why not utilize this language for the majority of the Latino market? So now that we have information about the trends of the Latino consumer base in the United States, I would recommend you marketers to take initiative in organizing successful marketing campaigns towards Latinos. Latinos are taking over the mobile device market, so why not create mobile ads that specifically target the Hispanic audience? The information about demographics is there to help make your advertisement more efficient. You know that the majority of the Hispanic public appreciates when advertising is done in Spanish as well. More and more people are jumping on board for Hispanic marketing. Proof of it is that advertising dollars to Spanish language television increased 17.8% during the second quarter of 2012, according to the latest report from the Cantor Media. And Spanish language magazines posted an 8.9% increase in advertising dollars as well. The new American consumer is here. Take advantage of it. Start building your solid consumer base within the Hispanic market. And if you think you have a solid Hispanic consumer base already, make it bigger. Acquire more clients. Become more profitable. Expand and thrive to globalize your business. Thank you very much for your attention. This is all. And thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.